All right, so let's in fact go back to the earlier story that we are tracking on WION, where the Indian Prime Minister and also the Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba made their opening remarks, pointing out as to how the India-Japan equation, of course, is getting stronger. And to discuss more as to what the significance of this visit is and as to how it will change the India-Japan dynamics, we are joined on this broadcast by Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, who's a former Indian ambassador to ASEAN and also a diplomat in Japan. Ambassador Singh, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. We heard those opening comments both by the Indian Prime Minister and the Japanese Prime Minister there. What were the key takeaways in your assessment?
First, I think there is a very strong camaraderie evident. And though Mr. Ishiba is not a very expressive person, if you see these pictures, he's moving his hands about and he's, waving. So there is a certain amount of happiness visible in that photograph, which means the talks have gone well. Secondly, the joint statement we will have to see. I have not seen it yet. It's not out. Most important, I think there is a roadmap for the next 10 years. There was an India-Japan Vision Document 2025. So now there is a roadmap for the Vision 2035. So that would be an interesting document. I think the Prime Minister has exchanged agreement on defense cooperation. That would be most interesting to see what it contains, because I am betting on Japan bringing in more defense electronics and sharing production and perhaps joint ventures in the future. But that is something we need to see. There were several agreements which were in the functional space, expanding what was said at the business summit and carried out in the past. You see, the mobility agreement, I think, is very important.
Right.
Japan so far has been at the forefront of building metros in India. But today, the European countries are also building metros. So there's nothing unique in Japan doing that. And then there's the Shinkansen bullet train, which Japan is doing. So I think this wider mobility agreement may actually include aviation and fast rails beyond the Shinkansen across many lines in India. This could be a big railway expansion. And certainly, I think collaboration in ports and shipbuilding is perhaps part of this mobility agreement. To me, these are the salient features from what I could make out.
I think those are some very key points there. And one of those interesting comments that was made by the Indian Prime Minister was, he said, Indian talent and Japanese technology will be the bedrock of this relationship. And also the Indian Prime Minister said something very interesting: make in India, make for the world. In wake of this trade tariffs that the United States has imposed on India, do you think there is room for increasing India's exports to Japan and increase the trade quantum that these two nations exchange?
First, I think the Prime Minister also said that over the next 5 years, 50,000 people will be trained, and it's possible that they will also work in India, in Japan. Now, please remember that in Japan, there are hardly 2,000 Indian students. Right. In Germany, there are 50,000. And whereas India's neighboring countries have hundreds of thousands of residents in Japan, India only has 53,000. So this human mobility for skilled manpower to work with Japan is extremely important, whether it is for training and then come back and work in the future Japanese investments in India is, I think, a very important issue. Now, you asked me about the United States. Now, obviously, the United States was not mentioned here, but I think both countries are clear that they need to do much more together to overcome the problem that they are facing with their major trading partner and strategic friend in the United States. You also asked me whether Indian exports, out of the $23 billion India-Japan trade, Indian exports are hardly $5.5 billion. Right. That is abysmal. That really requires a leg up. So I think we need to discuss with Japan how Indian exports can go up And now these may not only be to Japan, they may be to ASEAN, they may be to Africa, but India's global reach collaborating with Japan could go up, but this needs attention. And without attention, this will not happen.
I think you've really summed it up well there. Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador Singh, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thank you for having me.